In the grand final match of the 2021 Players Cup 2, it was Wolfe, coming out of a hard-fought losers bracket, against David, who had yet to be defeated in the entire bracket. With his back against the wall, Wolfe was somehow able to pull off a clean sweep to become the champion, winning 4 games in a row to cement Colossal's legacy as more than just a gimmick. Today, we'll be breaking down this historic finals match and understand how Wolfe managed to win using Coalossal of all Pokémon. Going into Game 1, knowing that David's Regigigas and Venusaur can both threaten to deal tons of damage to his Coalossal through Max Quake, Wolfe instead leads with Incineroar and Moltres, as David leads with Torkoal and Venusaur. Although this may seem bad for David, his lead forces an uncomfortable 50-50 on Wolfe, who now has to choose between clicking Fake Out into Venusaur to deny the Sleep Powder, or Taunt into the Torkoal if Venusaur Dynamaxes to deny the Yawn onto his Moltres. Indeed, David chooses to Dynamax his Venusaur and Max Quake Incineroar, importantly raising both Torkoal and his own special defense by 1 stage. However, instead of choosing to Dynamax his own Moltres and Max Airstream Venusaur, Wolfe calls the turn correctly by taunting Torkoal and Nasty Plotting, both doubling his damage output as well as saving his Dynamax essentially for free. Perhaps predicting Wolfe to max Darkness into the Torkoal slot to lower the opposing side's special defense, David switches Torkoal out into Urshifu, which unfortunately eats a Max Airstream, going down in 1 hit despite the special defense boost gained by Venusaur's second Max Quake, which luckily picks up the KO onto Wolfe's Incineroar, thanks to a critical hit. Whilst the switch may have seemed a bit questionable, Wolfe had already been ahead by too much by the end of the first turn, meaning that it was very reasonable for him to try banking off a misplay from Wolfe, who again gets the turn correct. As Wolfe replaces the fallen Incineroar with his Urshifu, David sends Torkoal back out alongside Venusaur. With Venusaur still being the fastest Pokemon on the field, it brings Wolfe's Urshifu down to its Focus Sash, as well as setting up G-Max Vine Lash, sealing Urshifu's fate by the end of the turn. Covering for a Torkoal Protect, Wolfe doubles into the slot with Max Airstream and Surging Strikes. Torkoal goes down to a +2 Life Orb boost in Max Airstream, as Urshifu is able to break the Focus Sash on David's Venusaur. Although Urshifu goes down on the turn, notice how Wolfe is able to secure 2 Max Airstream speed boosts to cover for David's last Pokemon to be Regieleki, as well as now outspeeding his opponent's Chlorophyll Sun boosted Venusaur. With both Wolfe and David sending out their last Pokemon of Coalossal and Weezing respectively, the game is set in stone as David is unable to stop Wolfe's Moltres. More importantly, the choice of both trainers' last Pokemon in fact gives each other a lot of valuable information on their future game plans. With Coalossal, which is extremely weak without Dynamax in the back, David knows that it is very likely that Wolfe could try to bluff with Moltres and end up Dynamaxing his Coalossal instead, whereas Wolfe has to be careful about his opponent switching Weezing in and disrupting his Coalossal's self-activation through Steam Engine, meaning that his Coalossal would still be very slow without the +6 speed boost, making it vulnerable to eating a Max Quake from David's Venusaur. Going into Game 2, David sends out the same lead as Wolfe adjusts by leading with Dragapult instead of Moltres, perhaps anticipating David to switch up his lead by going more aggressive with Regigigas and Weezing, after being deterred from repeating his lead from last game. It seems as though nothing can go in David's favour as Wolfe's Incineroar dodges the Sleep Powder and proceeds to secure the Flareblitz 10% burn chance, as Dragapult goes for Light Screen and Torkoal goes for a Yawn into the Dragapult slot. With David being so far behind already, all Wolfe has to do is convert his advantage by playing it safe. Whilst the Will-O-Wisp miss does give him a bit of fright, Wolfe plays Incineroar aggressively to take out David's Weezing, drastically weakening David's Regigigas as its ability Slow Start kicks back into effect, bringing Wolfe out of the losers bracket and simply 2 wins away from becoming crowned as champion. Notably, notice how David's 2 main answers to Wolfe's Coalossal, Regigigas and Venusaur, are both weak against Wolfe's Dragapult, which is Will-O-Wisp to cut Regigigas' damage output in half, as well as Safety Goggles to prevent it from being put to sleep by Venusaur's Sleep Powder, effectively enabling Dragapult to sit in front of it and click Light Screen. Despite his bad luck that round, if there was a time for David to make a comeback, the time would be now. Going to the next set, we see a repeat of Game 1's lead, as Wolfe sends out Incineroar and Moltres against David's Torkoal and Venusaur. Perhaps seeing the ineffectiveness of Dynamaxing Venusaur from 2 games back, Wolfe banks on David choosing not to Dynamax his Venusaur this time, instead opting to double into the slot with Fake Out and Air Slash, removing David's Venusaur from the game on turn 1, as Torkoal goes for a Yawn into the Moltres slot. Whilst this may seem very bad for David, the threat that Regigigas poses in the back still remains undeniable, as it could very easily sweep Wolfe's entire team if left unchecked. Unwilling to risk letting Wolfe's Incineroar get off a parting shot onto his Regigigas, David chooses to Max Quake into the Incineroar slot. However, expecting this, Wolfe double switches his Incineroar and Moltres into Dragapult and Coalossal, which accomplishes a number of things. First, with Dragapult now on the field, Wolfe is able to severely weaken Regigigas' damage output through Will-O-Wisp, giving his Coalossal or Moltres a much easier time to clean up in the endgame. Additionally, Wolfe is also able to prevent his Moltres from falling asleep by replacing it with Coalossal, maintaining his 4-3 Pokemon advantage. Whilst David played this turn out well, in hindsight, given how far behind he was already from losing Venusaur early for very little in return, a more aggressive play would have been needed from him expecting the Dragapult switch in. Regardless, the fact of the matter is that throughout the whole final series, Wolfe has constantly had all the momentum on his side, as rarely any turns fell in David's favour. With the burn secured onto David's Regigigas, the game was practically as good as over, as the Max Quake triggers Colossal's weakness policy, bringing David's Weezing critically low after the G-Max Volcalith residual chip. On the following turn, Wolfe stalls with Max Guard, as Weezing goes down, and now Wolfe's only one win away from being able to call himself a world champion once again. Headed into what could be the final game of the series, Wolfe finds himself in a tough situation as Incineroar and Moltres stare off against David's Weezing and Regigigas. Wolfe here has two options, either Dynamax Moltres and double attack into the Weezing slot, hoping David doesn't go for a protect, but in return sacrificing a ton of health on Moltres, combined with the risk of David's Regieleki being in the back to come sweep things up, or saving his Dynamax for Coalossal in the back, knowing that he can play through the numbers disadvantage thanks to Weezing's passiveness on the field. Wolfe goes for the latter, letting his Moltres go down completely for free as David's Weezing goes for a taunt instead of protecting, blocking Wolfe's Incineroar from going for a parting shot. For once, it had seemed like there was some sparks of life in David, as his flawless turn 1 play put him in an extremely commanding position to equalize the series back to 1-0. As Wolfe gets a Will-O-Wisp off onto David's Regigigas, the Max Hailstorm plus Sludge Bomb double up brings Dragapult critically low, as Wolfe's Incineroar Flare blitzes into the Weezing to put it within range of being KO'd the next turn. From here, the rest of the game seems incredibly bizarre, almost as though David is simply handing Wolfe the win. On turn 3, why didn't David taunt and not Sludge Bomb the critically low Dragapult? On turn 4, why did he high horsepower into a Dragapult that was destined to die to Hail Chip by the end of the turn anyways? Whilst it may seem like David was just throwing, especially given how he could have likely won had he made a different play, the truth is that these plays actually made a lot of sense in the situation he was in. On turn 3, David chooses to spare Wolfe's Dragapult because he recognized that he would have lost if he gave Wolfe a free switch into Coalossal next to Incineroar, as he could threaten to self-Flare Blitz proc Steam Engine and bank on Coalossal's natural tankiness to win the rest of the game. As for why he didn't protect Weezing instead, this could likely be due to the numerous Raking Swipe attack drops Regigigas had already taken, meaning that both of his Pokemon would have essentially been sitting ducks on the field on the following turn anyways. As for why David had attacked into a Dragapult that was already going to die on turn 4, the reason was that he had anticipated Wolfe to Dynamax his Incineroar. By Dynamaxing Incineroar, Wolfe's Incineroar would not only be able to tank hits much better, but also reset the weather to sun, thereby getting rid of the Hail Chip that would have otherwise killed Wolfe's critically low Dragapult. However, Wolfe unfortunately did not Dynamax his Incineroar and was intending to finish the game with Coalossal all along. You can even see by Wolfe's long pause on his Pokemon selection screen that even he was pretty confused by David's play. In the end, Wolfe was able to slip away with a 4-0 victory, earning his spot as the champion of the Players' Cup 2. Looking back, David could have tried to experiment a bit more by utilizing the versatility of his team through Regieleki and Urshifu, but for now, Wolfe gets to call himself a Pokemon World Champion once again. If you enjoy these sorts of breakdown videos, please like and subscribe and comment what other matches you would like me to go through next. Hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you guys next time.